Hey, welcome to The Explainer. You know, every community, whether it's ancient or brand new, eventually hits a breaking point, right? Well, today, we're going to go way back to the very first Christian community in the book of Acts. We're going to see how they dealt with the massive challenges of trying to build something completely new.
And really, their whole story boils down to a question that I think we all wrestle with. What on earth holds a community together when it starts to fray at the edges, when it starts to break apart? So let's dive right in.
So when you first open the book of Acts, the picture you get of this early church, wow, it sounds almost utopian, you know? Like it's pretty much a perfect community.
Yeah, the text paints this incredible picture from Acts chapter 2. We're talking about a group of people totally committed to learning, to being together, sharing meals in each other's homes, and even pooling their resources so that absolutely no one went without. It's this beautiful image of joy and sincerity, and that's the foundation they're building on. And honestly, that's what makes the cracks that start to show up next so dramatic.
But here's a super important point. This wasn't some kind of rule they had to follow. The source makes it crystal clear that all this sharing, it was totally voluntary. It was just a natural outward sign of the unity they felt inside. It wasn't some command from the top. In fact, in a story that happens right around this time, the big sin wasn't failing to give money, it was lying about it. So you can see, honesty was absolutely the bedrock of this whole thing.
Okay, so as you can probably guess, this perfect state of affairs, well, it didn't last. And the book of Acts, it doesn't try to sugarcoat it or hide the problems. Nope. In fact, it dives right in and shows us exactly how that first big crack appeared in their perfect foundation. So the conflict was between two main groups, the Hellenists and the Hebraists. And this was basically a cultural and language divide. You had the Hellenists, who were Jewish Christians who spoke Greek, and then you had the Hebraists who spoke Aramaic. And the problem that kicked everything off, it wasn't some big, abstract theological debate. No, it was something really practical, really down to earth. The Greek-speaking widows were getting missed. They were being overlooked when food was handed out every day.
So how did they fix it? Well, what's so cool is the apostles didn't just lay down the law. Instead, they came up with this really smart four-step solution. First, they get everybody together, the whole church. Then, they empower the community itself to pick 7 guys to handle the food distribution. And third, and this part is just genius, it's so important, the community chooses 7 men who all have Greek names. I mean, what a clear signal that they're serious about being fair to the Hellenist group. And then finally, the apostles officially commissioned these 7 guys for the job.
And the result? What happened after they solved this internal mess with so much wisdom and fairness? The movement absolutely exploded. The book of Acts draws a straight line from fixing this practical problem to this incredible exponential growth of the church. And that's such a powerful lesson, isn't it? A healthy, united community on the inside is exactly what fuels effective outreach on the outside.
But, solving an internal squabble, that was just the first test. The next challenge was on a whole different level. It was even bigger. This one meant tearing down one of the oldest, deepest barriers in their entire world, the wall between Jews and Gentiles.
So this whole story revolves around 2 very different men. On one hand, you've got this guy, Cornelius. He's a Roman centurion, a Gentile, but he's devout and drawn to the God of Israel. He gets a vision from an angel telling him to do something, and boom, he obeys instantly. No questions asked. Then, on the other hand, you have Peter, the apostle. He gets a vision from heaven, and his very first reaction is to argue. He says, "No, Lord." I mean, talk about a contradiction, right? It really shows you the holdup, the obstacle here. It was all on Peter's side.
I mean, can you imagine? A voice from heaven has to tell you the same thing 3 times. What God has made clean, do not call impure. Peter's slowly starting to realize, okay, this isn't really about food. This was a huge symbolic message, and it was about people. God was basically preparing him to demolish a wall, not a physical one, but a massive one in his own mind.
And this right here, this is the light bulb moment. Peter finally gets it. He stands up and declares, "I now understand that God shows no partiality." He sees it. The vision wasn't about bacon or shrimp. It was about people. God was showing him in no uncertain terms that he should never call any person impure or unclean.
So how do we know this story is an absolutely massive deal? Well, the author of Acts tells it, and then retells it, and then refers back to it again. It's in there 3 times. That puts it on the same level of importance as Pentecost, the birth of the entire church, and the conversion of the Apostle Paul. So why is it so important? because this moment, the Gentile Pentecost, was when God himself blew the doors open for non-Jews to become part of his people. So you see, these solutions, first to their internal division, and then to this huge external exclusion, they weren't just one-time fixes for specific problems. No, they actually became the blueprint for how to build a diverse, global movement.
So, what did this new community actually look like? Well, for starters, it was made up of both Jews and Gentiles, together. Their identity wasn't about where they were born, it was about what they believed, and they all received the Holy Spirit. They were a people willing to face real persecution, and to do it with joy. And above all, they were completely united in one thing: praising God.
You know, there's a scholar who puts it just perfectly. He says, the experience of salvation always invokes praise to the giver of salvation. And that really gets to the heart of it, right? In other words, when people from all these different backgrounds get swept up in this kind of radical, no barriers inclusion, the most natural human thing to do is just to worship. And so that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. These aren't just dusty old stories. They're basically case studies, blueprints for resolving conflict and for what radical inclusion can look like, which really leaves us with one big question to chew on. What lessons can we, in our own communities, our jobs, our societies today, what can we learn from how this very first community managed to heal its own divisions?